It should be recognized that the influence of social networks on our lives is extremely great. On the one hand, they facilitate our communication, making it possible to be with friends and family all the time. However, they can also cause some very frightening situations to arise because of them. And while some may dismiss these dangers as obsessive fears, there are those who have experienced the negative effects of the dark side of social media firsthand. Today, we learn a story that confirms their real threat. This story highlights the bitter episode of Takahiro Shiraishi, a Japanese man who used Twitter to commit atrocities that took the lives of 9 innocents. This case will remind everyone that social media is sometimes deceptive, and it is important to remain vigilant when using it. In the fall of 2017, 23-year-old Iko Tamura went missing in Zama, Japan. For 2 long days, there was no word from her, no calls, no messages, no notes. The girl's family was in particular shock, as she had recently lost her mother and was struggling to cope with depression. Additional concern was caused by strange postings on her Twitter feed. Her latest message spoke of a passionate search for a soulmate with whom she could share life's extreme moments, which shocked her family. Her brother, concerned, began searching for any trace that could shed light on his sister's disappearance. Accessing her Twitter account, he found a cryptic correspondence with a stranger whose profile was adorned with an anime avatar with an image of a rope around his neck and whose description read, "I wish to help those in need. Contact me." One of the followings led to another Twitter account similarly linked to the man. Iko's brother, after conducting his own investigation, discovered that multiple girls were communicating with these accounts. After finding contacts and communicating with one of them, they set up a meeting to lure and catch the hanger-on. The police agreed to support the plan. When the girl arrived at the station, the suspect was already waiting. Following to his modest apartment in Zama, the front door opened for the police. There waiting for them was 27-year-old Takahiro Shiraishi. He was unassuming in appearance, but what his cold room hid caused the search team to be horrified. When Shiraishi was asked about Iko's location, his answer was startling. He pointed to the refrigerators covering the room's space. In these containers, fragments of Iko's body were found. This was just the beginning of a gruesome find that underscores the fears associated with social media use. As the investigation continued, law enforcement uncovered the horrifying truth. They found numerous human body parts larger than the victim alone. Eventually, 9 heads and over 240 skeletal parts were discovered, allowing the serial nature of the crimes to be confirmed without a doubt. Takahiro Shiraishi, who seemed like a pleasant and polite neighbor to everyone, found himself the focus of grim police attention. Those who had known him since childhood could not believe he was involved in such atrocious acts. Some remembered him as a quiet boy with good communication skills, which now seemed absurd. The images of friendly and seemingly nice criminals so often seen in crime stories were repeated again in this story. Even as a child, Shiraishi had shown strange signs that could possibly have been harbingers of future terrible events, as his friends recalled. Before committing the crimes, he was seen engaging in unscrupulous practices in Tokyo's red light district, and Twitter served as his recruiting platform. In February 2017, he had already come to the attention of the police and received a suspended sentence. The 27-year-old man then confessed his depression to his father and moved in with him. Finding himself in a predicament, Takahiro took the darkest of paths. With a knack for gaining trust online, he delved deeper into the world of Twitter once again, but with darker goals. In August 2017, it seemed like his life was starting to get better. He told his father about a new acquaintance and his desire to move out of the house. His unemployed father helped with renting an apartment. Shiraishi's crimes were particularly monstrous. He would lure potential victims, often depressed or mentally disturbed, by pretending to be assisted suicide. In the house, he would asphyxiate them, then dismember them, packing their remains into containers, which contributed to his Twitter nickname, hanging pro or professional executioner. At trial, Takahiro admitted that he found it easy to manipulate mentally vulnerable people. His motives were rooted in his own uselessness and loneliness. He sought a sense of power and control in taking the lives of others and found satisfaction in the process of dismemberment, which he compared to the work of a butcher. His appearance of friendliness and kindness on social media gave people hope for companionship, but was just a mask used to attract vulnerable women to his apartment, where he committed his atrocities. Takahiro was caught thanks to the attentiveness of his brother Iko and the active actions of his family. Once apprehended, he was convicted of all 9 murders and sentenced to death. With his deceptive tweets, he attracted those tormented by emotional storms by creating an image of sympathy and understanding that made him seem trustworthy. Alas, this persona was only a facade behind which Takahiro Shiraishi's criminal nature lurked. Shiraishi's use of social media as a tool to find victims hampered police investigations because he could masquerade as numerous anonymous profiles. Information about his atrocities spread across Japan and shocked the public, clearly showing the dark side of virtual communication, where people seeking solace can fall into the trap of perverts. The media hyped the story, discussing rumors of cannibalism and a photo album of Shiraishi's victims. They sought to maintain anonymity for the victims, but their identities were eventually revealed. Shiraishi's trial was a disturbing event where the families of the murdered men gathered. They learned horrific details about their final moments. For example, 21-year-old Mizuki Miura was his first victim. He borrowed money from her to move into the very same apartment and then convinced the girl to come to discuss repayment, after which Mizuki disappeared. He strangled her and took the money. Kuryuha Ishihara and Shoguni Shinaka were also victims of his strangling ropes, just as tragically and suddenly. The courtroom was filled with grief, anger, and disbelief as Shiraishi recounted his crimes, showing no remorse or compassion. His lawyer tried to portray him as a man with mental health problems in need of help, but Shiraishi himself resigned himself to his fate. He admitted guilt and was prepared to face the consequences, even if it meant execution. Moreover, he apologized to the families of his victims, even though it would make little difference to them. At the end of the trial, though with a sense of closure, the families suffered an indelible loss. They realized that their daughters, sisters, had fallen victim to a monster that preyed on the vulnerable on social media. Twitter is responding swiftly, updating the rules. CEO Jack Dorsey talks about protecting users. The Japanese government is also acting, supporting online mental health care and improving education on social communication. Takahiro Shiraishi's story is a bitter lesson about unresolved mental health issues and the struggles ahead. In response, we must invest in acts of kindness and understanding. We ourselves can contribute to a protected society. Remember, everyone matters. Thank you for your attention.